Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Too Many Men podcast. We are here in full. We are complete. We are a trio, and we all dressed somewhat alike. So it's a sign. There's so many signs in this world, my friends. None other than you're with amazing people when you talk to someone who just took a trip out to Utah, ran 10 miles, and took on an adventure on the heels of an NBA night out. It is the incredible, the brilliant, the world traveling. Hire her to cover the playoffs. Sarah Sivian. Sarah, how are you?
I am fantastic, but I wasn't that fantastic when I woke up this morning and realized I bought this shirt outside of TD Garden last night after going to my first ever Celtics game. So thank you, Joe Mazzulla, for making that happen.
For the people who maybe don't enjoy the YouTube of it all, Sarah, can you describe the shirt you just held
Yeah,
up?
the shirt says TD Garden, like TD Garden. I don't know what inspired that purchase, but that was fun to wake up to.
And then we would never, ever, ever be too many men if we did not have the brilliant shopper. I'll leave it at that in case she wants to share or not share more details of big fun things. And the playoff previewing hockey insider, our gossip girl, Shayna Goldman. Shayna, say hi.
Hi.
Is there anything you'd like to share? You don't have to.
Oh yeah, I bought a car.
Yay.
We didn't go on vacation before the playoffs to reset our brain. Instead, we decided let's throw our brain into more shit.
Yay.
Well, we are so happy to be here. And y'all, I rarely do this. You guys give me shit for it. But I would like to remind everyone that 6 months ago yesterday, 6 months ago on the day that the Canucks lost 5-0 to the Seattle Kraken, reducing their playoff odds, according to Money Puck, to under 2%.
Wow.
I predicted that the Canucks would not make the playoffs. Pew, 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 pew.
Unbelievable.
That
And you predicted Pedersen would have a bad year, right?
Yes, I did.
Did you look at that? Who knew?
she's having the conversations none of us want to have, doing the tough stuff.
No,
All
wait,
for the
but wait.
people.
On
Yes,
on the Canucks,
yes.
because we didn't put this on the docket, but it just popped into my little peanut brain. A lot of discourse about Rick Tocchet and what the
Yes.
Canucks want to do with him. And I have feelings on this. Like I see they might use the option or they want to extend him and they want to keep him. And I'm not saying they shouldn't. A year ago he was coach of the year. Sure, the vibes, whatever. But I look at this season and I think it was such a disaster on every single level. And to me, he's not your X's and O's guy. He is your people manager,
He's
right?
your
That's how I
vibes
like,
guy. Yeah.
yeah, the vibes guy. He's there to manage the room and manage the players and all the personalities. And then you have really good associates and assistants who can help with the tactics of it all. I don't see how the Canucks did a good job of that. I think so many players underperformed. There were so many things swirling around that room that didn't get settled that it literally destroyed their season. And yet they're going, we need to keep this guy. I in a league where coaching changes so quick, I'm at a loss.
They
This
want him
is
to suffer. They're punishing him. You have to stay. No more TNT for you.
we last week we were a Sharks podcast, and we appreciate all the amazing feedback we got from Sharks fans. We do love you. Your team is fun. Now we're a Canucks podcast. Okay, so see, this is interesting, right? Because again, obviously being out west, the Canucks fan base is all up in arms about Rick Tocchet, and most people are like, "Gosh, we hope we can keep him and not lose him to the Fly era." But Shayna, you're saying let him go.
Let him go.
Sarah, what do you say? You want to keep
Yeah, let
Tocchet with
him.
Canucks?
I mean, let him go. I think there needs to be, obviously, there was drama involving him, right? Where it's like he maybe had gone back and forth with JT Miller. You kind of want to just rid yourself of this entire thing, even though everybody loves him, like obviously coach of the year, like you said. I just think like this is a classic move on type situation. And so leave it to the Canucks to not do anything classic and keep him.
See, now this is all very, this is, it goes back to what we were talking about coach of the year, Shayna, is that like the joke always is, right? Coach of the year,
Yep.
show me a coach of the year, show me their goaltender, right? And obviously last year Demko was lights out. And that is part of my reason why I like Columbus over even DC, is like that's really managing some shit above and beyond like the ice. But so here, let me ask you this. Are you all locked into the hashtag dialogue about the goalie poll and the non-goalie poll by Talkit? Have you seen this?
No,
No.
please. He is our West insider. Let us know what's going on.
Okay, so here's the deal. So Vancouver just finished a 6-game road trip, right? They go 2-2-2. Their last game is in Winnipeg. They're down, I think it's 3-1. And Talkit never pulls Demko. And like Demko, you can see him like looking over and like he never pulls Demko. And then last night, they're down 4-0 to the Kraken. And respectfully, they looked uninspired. I am sorry. That was not a good game by the Canucks team. And Talkit pulls the goaltender and then they allow an empty net goal. And people are like, why would you like that game? You weren't going to win that game. You're down 4 goals. You're not looking like a team that's going to come back. And then you were going up against the Jets in a game that you were arguably close in, and you didn't pull the goaltender. And everyone's like, this is Talkit like giving a fuck you to Demko potentially, like he's sending a message. Like, I know I have just shared all these details, but Sarah, what do you make of the new hashtag drama about goaltending or non-goaltending pulls? I know
I
it's a
just
lot.
think it all just seems like a mess, right? Like I just need there to be like one decisive decision that everybody follows and is on board with. You know what I mean? Like I
Yeah.
just feel like this team just needs to get it together. It's just the latest dysfunction.
Yes. I will say I watched that Winnipeg game and I was shocked that they didn't pull him. Shayna, do you have a thought before we move on to our actual agenda?
Yeah, it was weird. And listen, sometimes not every team is great at a 6-on-5, right? That you're allowing that empty net or that it's whatever. And I think if that were the case with the Canucks, that we're all like, well, they're such a terrible 6-on-5 team, they can't be trusted. That's one thing that you're like, we have a better shot of coming back in this if we, take a timeout, stay with 5 men on, maybe you go Quinn Hughes and 4 forwards. Like you could go different ways before you decide to pull your goaltender, but they just don't have that. So here it is, and you're saying like they're uninspired looking last night, and I'm going, your coach is here for that, to manage that. And like, listen, he's not at fault for how the team's built. I think that sometimes we see coaches get fired because of the strength of the roster, and we
For
know
sure.
that roster has flaws, but there are decisions along the way. And it's funny how much discourse there has been over the last couple of years with goalie pulls in Vancouver. Remember like the JT
Right?
Miller Demko situations too, on top of it,
Oh, yeah,
that you
yeah,
would
yeah.
like not expect this to be the topic of conversation. But here we are. It's just messy. It's the whole thing. Everything Vancouver, it just feels messy, except for Quinn Hughes. He's the only thing that's
Quinn Hughes
not.
is perfect, except he's broken, but he is perfect.
And
Yeah.
he's still incredible. He's
Yeah.
like you watch him the game against Columbus
Yes.
last
The
Friday
six
night.
seven game. Yeah, yeah.
Inc Incredible game, right? Like for entertainment purposes, if you're a head coach, you burn the tape probably after that. But for our purposes, and this is what matters, us, our viewership, you're watching him in that game when, they're trying to pull even and come back. The shit Quinn Hughes does with the puck and the way he skates, it is like eye-catching every single time, every single moment. And I watch this team and I go, you have a player playing at this level right now and he's not even 100% and you can't do a damn thing around him.
And listen, I feel that we got to be careful here because we could go into a whole dialogue about the Canucks. We'll have to do our own, as they call it in Vancouver, autopsy on the season for them. Okay, but here's my last question before we go into our agenda because we never talk about this. To your point, Shayna, I feel like this is an eternal debate in hockey. And Sarah, I would like your take first.
Okay.
Is a team comes out and is flat, right? They're not going, they don't have the energy, whatever. And like a coach will say, well, that's my job to get the team ready to play, like Shayna was just saying. But also, like, respectfully, if you're in the top 1% of any industry, like these players are, like, and you can't get yourself motivated for a game, like, are you of the opinion, Sarah, that a team being quote unquote ready to go from the quote unquote drop of the puck is ultimately, it's shared for real, but ultimately is the responsibility of the player or the responsibility of the coach?
I think it's a coach because you can see less skilled teams and less skilled players that play their hearts out because they really like their coach. And it's like, obviously, as you said, this falls on a numerous amount of little decisions throughout the day or like throughout the season, right? But like patterns, whatever. But it's your job to get everybody prepared as a coach. It's like one of the only things that's under your control is to get people playing a sound game.
Shayna.
Yeah, I'm gonna say it's more on the coach because if if you see one player has an off game, two players, it's okay. But when it's five guys, 5-man unit, the next 5-man unit, like it's a pattern. And you kind of have to go for the common denominator, which is the coach. And when you see, let's say the individuals are having off nights, which can happen, right? As much as these are millionaires who are paid to do this, people have off nights in this sport. There's a million ways you could be set off because so many things are happening at once. If you see that happening, like I get frustrated when I don't see coaches talking enough. I would like to see that communication in the TV timeout, bring everyone together and just without you don't have to tear into them necessarily. It depends on the team, it depends on the approach, right? You might be like, everyone take a fucking breath, relax, reset, and let's do this better. You don't have to bring out the whiteboard even or take your time out, right? You have moments where you can talk to guys, and there are more than one coach on the bench to settle the group that I put it more on the coach because I think they're the ones that are going to stop that and fix it versus the players.
All right, there you go. We have cracked the code of one of the eternal hockey cliches in the world. And with that, it is time to return to your usual Too Many Men programming. And with that, Sarah, I ask you, what time is it?
Time for bit O news.
Before we get into the hockey specific bit O news, we do want to give a hug and a stick tap to our creator of our illustrious drum roll, Benny Drawbars. He and his wife welcomed a baby daughter this week. She is beautiful. I will not share her name out of respect for Benny. That's his to do, not me to do. But we are so happy for you. Congratulations. We love you. We appreciate you. With that being said, folks, let's get into the junk of it all. First things first, and Shayna, I'm hopeful that as our business of hockey mind, you can walk us through this, but the NHL has announced a new deal for Canadian TV. There's a lot of information out there. One of the biggest factoids for me is that this is a 12-year agreement, which seems ridiculously long in an industry that is changing literally almost daily. But also some exciting points that people are making surrounding reducing blackouts and just more hashtag supposed certainty and stability in the league, which we know Bettman loves to talk about. Before we get into our thoughts, Shayna, tell us your main fact-based takeaways of what we should all know about this deal.
Okay, so it's 11 billion, I believe. It is a
Yes.
12-year deal for Rogers and the NHL. So Canadian broadcast will still be on Sportsnet, primarily as like the national dealings. And it's not a perfect product, but they have been partners with them for some time, so it's extending the relationship. And I don't know, like I think that covers like the basis of the facts of it all, right? Like it's an extension. There's nothing really flashy here except for the price tag, which is very high. We know the cap is going up, and these are reasons why. So that is our little surface level analysis.
Okay. And as people who may not live in Canada, what should we care about this, if at all?
Well, you could look at it a couple ways, right? Like you should care that the NHL has stability, and I'm sure that they have certain things worked into this, which is a good thing, right? Because streaming rights and digital rights and TV rights are changing every single day. So I'm sure it's ensured X number of games will be available on cable, X number of games are available for streaming and things like that. And they have a product in place. What is it? Sportsnet One, I think it is called. I forget what
honestly.
Sportsnet Plus, something like that. They have their own streaming package like we do here for ESPN Plus. That is imperfect. I've
That's
used
what
it.
I've heard.
It is imperfect. But you know what? Like every product is imperfect. Like we could sit there and
Too
nitpick
many
plus
men is perfect.
Too Many Men is perfect. But every streaming product, in my opinion, I'm very nitpicky about these, is imperfect. But I think the fact that they have that foundation and the infrastructure is in place that I wonder how much it has to be improved. I would be curious about that. So that's something to care about. It's long-term stability for the league. It's something locked up that they know about that say something changes in 5 years and networks go, we don't want this on cable anymore. The NHL can turn around and say, well, it's in your contract and you have to do it versus say things like, baseball here is they're no longer going to have Sunday night baseball with ESPN and then relationships change and then it's harder to find games. Like I think it settles that. So that's one one thing to care about, right?
I mean, in fairness, there's lots of people who've had lots of TV deals and they've just changed it. But your point is well taken. Sarah, do you have thoughts on this announcement? The Canadian media obviously rightly making a big deal of this and its intricacies that relate to their market specifically. But do you have any thoughts on the new broadcasting deal?
Yeah, it's just kind of standard normalcy, happy for everybody involved. It's just like an iconic hockey thing to tell people from America who don't really know anything about hockey that this is like the Canadian quirky part of this all, I guess. Yay. Happy for
But
them.
wait, okay, wait. There
Yes.
is one thing I remember seeing, and that
Yes.
was that there may be sub rates that they can still give out. So right
Correct.
now, obviously we have Amazon Monday Night Hockey. I think they do a great job with the broadcast. So another night may be up for grabs. So that'll be interesting to see how they do it because I think they have something successful there. And obviously, like I think here's the big difference, right? Like the NHL is getting deeper with Amazon. And
Yes.
maybe someone make the argument that they could be the full-time partner, but then you're going fully streaming, which people, some may want, but a lot of people do not want. So I wonder if we see Amazon get a second night of the week or continue with the one night of the week, see where it goes, where it doesn't go, but it's like a stepping stone. The issue then is going to be, well, it's a 12-year commitment and who knows what things will look like then. And if you're shooting yourself in the foot by making this kind of commitment now, but I wonder if those like sub licenses will be smaller deals to keep options open around it. And this is just like the foundation of the streaming, you know?
Right. Well, and that's that again, I've not had the time to dig fully into this, but that's also as far as I understand it, the baseline for why they're saying there'll be fewer blackout games now because they can make these sub deals to allow for what's technically considered more national games, so there will be no more blackout games. But
Oh.
Listen, any way you can do that because like here in the US, there was a time way back when people had a class action lawsuit against blackouts for MLB TV and NHL TV. And when if I
we're
remember
talking about class action lawsuit. Go
No, no,
ahead.
no, no, because
I know,
it was over the blackouts in
I
regional
know.
markets.
It's
And
great. Go ahead.
it's funny because I was having this conversation last night because now like if you're like okay, we're in New York, we have SNY to watch the Mets. We cannot watch the Mets on MLB TV.
Right.
But now SNY doesn't have its own app. You log in through MLB TV. So say you already have a subscription, you can just watch your local stuff there because you have a cable login. But when you go to do it, you basically have to, unless you read the very fine print, sign up for MLB TV, accidentally subscribe to it, and then have to go, oh shit, that wasn't what I was doing. So like everything is so convoluted with like regional rights that it's nice to see one market is starting to get it right. And I wonder if that ever changes here. But it does seem like unless there's money in it, nobody's going to go for it and do it and make that change happen.
We'll see what this all means. Obviously, it just we would love to see more hockey available to more people, and I know particularly for the United States, it's so hard to consume content. It seems to be getting harder and not easier. So we'll see what happens. Another bit o news, Sarah, that I know you're just dying to talk about. Alexander Ovechkin scored another goal in the game versus Carolina last night that they ultimately lose. It doesn't matter. The Caps are already in the playoffs. Maybe they don't care. But Ovi now officially has not just 892 career goals, which is two behind tying Wayne Gretzky and three behind beating and owning the record all out. He has his own freaking section on the NHL media site for the great, get it, great chase. We're all supposed to be talking about this all the freaking time. Sarah, where are we at with the Ovi chase?
It's like at this point he's through it. Call me when it happens. Like good for him. Like that meme that's like, I'm sorry, I ain't reading that. Thanks or sorry that happened or whatever. It's just like I ain't reading all that. Um, it seems like we're just milking every single second out of this to the point where like maybe I'm just desensitized to stuff, but it's like the marketing of it has been so extreme that like I'm not even gonna care when it happens.
I so agree with you. Again, I think it's really cool, and we've talked about this. Like, it's going to be a moment that transcends just hockey, and that could help grow the game and whatever. But like it's got its own logo and all this stuff. And like, Shayna, what do you think?
Okay. I don't hate all of it. Like I have written a lot about Ovechkin. I've been in the weeds with this a lot. I'm having a good time with it because it's different from what I expected at the end of last season, at the beginning of this year when he started a little bit slower and then took off. It's miraculous. He's doing that with the leg injury in mind. And when you see this year for the Capitals isn't just about Ovi breaking the record, it's so much bigger than that. And I think all of that is great and wonderful. And I like a lot of the social media work the Capitals are doing. I don't mind that there's a logo for it and it's accessible to casual fans because I do think that helps, right? Because I've had people talk to me about this, like not keeping up with the season, but amazed that he's doing it. But I do think it's being like shoved down our throats a little bit much from a national perspective when I wish the NHL would lean into the capital side of it a little bit more. Like their TikToks are incredible. Joe Beninati's calls for
Yeah.
these. I went back
Yeah.
and I'm watching goals from 0506 and it's Joe Beninati still. Like you're listening to, I'm going through the years to find goals and I'm listening to his calls over and over and over again. And it's iconic that it's this one commentator doing it this entire time who knows him, right? And knows the team. And like they grow up together in this industry doing it. So I get that they're making these games national and, the national schedule revolves around this, and I get that. But I do feel like they're taking away from the local market a little bit when I wish they would lean into it more because I think it would be more organic from them. And I think we all would like it a little bit more too, right? Because you would
That's a
get
good
to
call.
see the
Yeah.
close side
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely a good call. And I will also give a little bit of props because about a week ago, I was raging about this. If that motherfucker breaks the record on an empty net goal, it should not count. And I know Gretzky had a ton of empty net goals, but like this video is going to live on for potentially 100 years. Like
Yeah.
it can't be like when the Caps played the Kraken, like the game was basically over. Ovechkin was out there. He didn't do anything all game. Like he was a non-factor. And then the minute they have the game in hand, they trot him out there for the empty net goal. Like, let's earn it a little bit. And again, like I said, I know Gretzky had a huge number of empty net goals too, but
Yeah.
like
You
this,
don't want the tying or the record breaking
right.
one to be empty netters.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I agree.
Exactly.
I,
And
I
like at least
think,
that last night, that was not it seems
right.
like he gets that too. And like these goals are now being fully earned, not just like put him out there to get a goal.
Yeah, exactly. And like this year, I think compared to the beginning of last season when he was like scoring really slow, it was what, like 8 empty net goals out of his 20 goals to start the year or something like that. Like it's different this year. And I think the fact that there's more runway, it's not, oh, there's 2 games left, because then you're gonna
Right,
see
right,
him in
right.
every situation. That I wonder if it's like, okay, take a breath a little bit. But, you know, I I get that. I do get that. There was a good story. I think did Mark Lazarus write about empty net goals and Ovechkin and his legacy and everything like that?
I
I
saw
think
I have it on the tab open. I haven't read it yet.
yeah. It's a good thing to talk about. I think sometimes, like last year, Kucherov's point total was like, well, how many of them were empty nets? And I was like, I don't give a shit because
Yeah.
if he's out there, it's for good reason. With Ovechkin, you don't want it that he's just out there to get the goal total. You know what I mean? There's a difference, and
Yeah.
I see exactly where you're coming from.
I will say also though, there's been a lot of opportunities he's given up to like get somebody else a hat trick or
True.
something. So
True.
like maybe he can sprinkle in an empty netter, but just don't make it be the tying one or the beating the record one. Please,
That,
Yeah.
Ovi, listening to our podcast.
Well, he definitely is. I mean,
Who
everyone
wouldn't?
listens to this podcast.
that is also an excellent point, Sarah. Excellent, excellent stuff. And thank you, Ovi, for taking our direction so seriously. We appreciate that. All right, we have one final bit o news, and this is on the drama front. So here we go. Last night, the Islanders lost to the Lightning. Anthony Duclair, for all intents and purposes, who's bounced around the league and finally comes to the Islanders for some presumed stability, even cuts his hair and shaves his facial hair so that he can play for Lou, was basically benched in the third period, as I said. And after the game, Patrick Waugh, head coach, just unloaded. Quote, he was god awful. He was god awful. He had a bad game. Then this morning, Patrick Waugh proactively addresses the media and he says, and I'm quoting, obviously you saw that Anthony was not at practice today. This morning, Anthony and I had a very good conversation, a very positive one. And Anthony asked me to take some time off and reflect. So obviously I agreed to that and will give him all the time that he needs. Duclair has been a divisive player in this league for a long time. His offensive skill has seemingly been always undeniable, and he's dealt with significant injury coming into the season that delayed his debut with the Islanders. But Sarah, what do you make of all this?
That's kind of odd. And I know he had some really harsh words, obviously, for Duclair before they left. I mean, I'm glad it seems like it's been resolved, but you wonder what happened there where he's like, that was atrocious when he was out there. And it's like they are fighting for a playoff spot, and this is the guy they bring in to do it. And now they're letting him leave. There seems to be some type of argument here. It must be, I don't know, pretty bad if they're letting him leave during all this. Like, I don't know.
Shayna, thoughts? We're seeing more and more players take leaves away from their team for sometimes disclosed and sometimes undisclosed reasons. What's your take on what's going on over on the island?
Yeah, I mean, listen, has he been good? No. He was brought in to be a good top six winger. I think that was asking a lot. I think ideally he's a good middle six winger, and that's fine, right? Like on a deep team, on a Stanley Cup contender, ideally, or if he's on that top line's so loaded that he's the supporting guy, he's the passenger on that line, but he can be very good in that role. And the Islanders roster was flawed from day one, and I think they have to over leverage their players to make up for it. But I think the biggest issue is like he got hurt mid-season. He had a groin injury. When a player comes back to the lineup, there's two ways that I keep trying to think about it. And I feel like Tom Wilson is like the prime case of this with his ACL, if I remember correctly. There's being healthy enough to return to the lineup, and there's healthy enough to be effective. And they're two very different things. So in Duclair's case, I do wonder, is he healthy enough to be in the lineup or healthy enough to be effective? Because his skating doesn't look up to par. I can't help but think, is it because of the injury? So if the coach knows that and that is the case, then he's completely out of line, right? Like then he's completely out of line. Like if you know the injury is an issue. If the injury is not an issue, then okay, there's more grounds to be frustrated about this. And like I don't know. I don't love how he did it. I don't love that it's through the media. And we've seen this before, specifically with this player. And there was a lot of discourse last time about this. So I'm a little surprised there isn't this time. Like, and obviously Anthony Duclair knew what he was getting into with Patrick Roy. He has played for him before in the QMJHL. They have a relationship, right? So as much as you might know you might be getting into it, you might still not expect that, especially because he has changed and evolved as a coach. Patrick Roy made a huge point. He's not the same guy he used to be. So it's tough. I feel horrible for Duclair because even if he was god awful, like Patrick Roy said, you don't want it like to be blasted that way. And we also don't know how much is he getting worked with in practice to fix these flaws in his game? Like, what are you doing to get him to be the best version of himself? Yes, he's a millionaire player and he has to do it too, but like, there's just a million pieces of it. And I think last time when this was discussed, those questions were being asked a little bit more than they are right now. And I find that one interesting. Allison, do you have thoughts on that?
So tired from the torts discourse. Yeah. I mean, listen, I think it's interesting too that these are two coaches who are both very, very fiery. And people may not remember this, but after Duclair was traded away from Columbus, Torts skated at practice with one of Duclair's sticks the next day and carried it into a scrum and made the point of like talking about the player. And it's just hard because he's a guy who is, like you said, like a strictly offensive tool. He's never been a two-way player, and I think if people are expecting more, then that's on them. But more and more we're seeing like significant injuries can completely derail a season, right? And like it's not like the Islanders were going to be world beaters and Anthony Duclair was just the final puzzle piece to make it all work. And does he even work in that system and with those other players? I don't know. He gets a 4-year deal regardless, but here we are. So I don't know. Sarah, any final thoughts on this?
It's just, yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens. Maybe this is one where like we get more info from reporters on the scene and stuff, and they say they got into an argument or something. But I mean, obviously, this coach is a very fiery guy, and they know each other well. So I guess that's kind of a benefit for whatever's going on. Like you can trust that they're probably handling it amongst themselves.
I'm sure Lou will hold a press conference shortly and imminently
Yeah.
to tell us all the details. All right. It is time for our next segment, somewhere we haven't been in a while, but per usual, they demand it. Shayna, what time is it?
We don't do it as much anymore because we've all lost the passion because they're so boring this year, but it is how does it affect the Leafs?
Woo, woo, woo. I think we need like a new sound effect for that too. How does it affect the Leafs, my friends? Here we are. Ooh, I actually know what sound effect I'm going to put in there. Exciting times. All right. Yes, the Leafs, my friends, have clinched a playoff spot for the 9th time. In a shocking turn of development news, my producer Scott Malone shared this factoid with me last night. That is the longest active streak in the NHL. So no team has been making the playoffs consecutively year after year right now than your Toronto Maple Leafs. Now, of course, the obvious joke is, and they also probably have the longest active streak for getting bounced in the first round, but here we are. This is a little bit of a different looking Leafs team. To your point, Shayna, perhaps boring, question mark, who's to say? Keefe has left the building. Sarah, is this a Leafs team that actually has the chance to make some noise in the postseason, or are we looking at max 7 games and then to the golf course they go?
No, I mean, they've done consistently well, and they're a different team. Obviously, now they have the goaltending tandem that's working out well for them. And they were doing great at 5-on-5 before Austin Matthews really revved up. Now he's here. So they're going to need him to be on top of his game, of course, but it looks like he's recovering from whatever injury sent him to Germany, and he looks fine. I worry about the power play a little bit, but I think this is a
Which
different
is
year where they're
wild,
more, I
right?
know,
Like,
right? They're more structurally sound. There's no Bruins. Like, it'll probably be fine.
Shayna, are you too bored to care?
No, I can't be too bored to care. I have to care. Um, yeah, I don't know. I'm torn on this because I don't like the coaching this year. I don't like the playing style. I don't like that they didn't add secondary scoring. Like I have serious issues with this team, clearly. Um, the fact that John Tavares is on such a tear is impressive because like last year he couldn't cash in. He couldn't buy a goal at the end of the year. So it's totally different. He's been excellent. And I think that might and the fact that him and Nyes are scoring a lot lately, I think it takes a little bit of pressure off Marner. Matthews and Nylander, but that pressure is going to be there, rightfully so at this point. Like I tried to stay away from those narratives forever, but like I'll listen to him at this point because like there's an argument to be had with players there, with players in Winnipeg, like if you can perform in the moment, and that is what it's going to come down to. But it's so tough because like the easiest path for them is the Senators, for sure. But could I see them blowing a series against the Senators because it's the Leafs?
Absolutely.
Absolutely yes.
Mhm.
Absolutely yes. And that's the thing. It's like if I'm them, you should be pretty relieved if you don't have to be 2-3 and have Toronto or Tampa because I mean Tampa or Florida because I could see either team beating them. Um, but so the Senators are your best path, but I just look at that and go, that is such a trap series that I'm so torn on what's going to happen in the Atlantic.
It's yeah. You look at this and to your point, Shayna, I buried the lead a little bit. Toronto does sit first in the Atlantic. Tampa Bay 3 points behind. They've been rolling as well, except for when they're in Utah. I don't know what happened. Maybe it was oh,
It
never
wasn't
mind.
Vasilevsky.
It
It was
wasn't. They drank
Halverson
too
who
much
played.
soda, Shayna.
Listen,
I
they
didn't
missed
do
their
that.
coffee.
Oh, Sarah, you did.
I wish you did. I
No,
needed you to do this.
we
Did
were
you
gonna go
witness
on
anyone doing
Sunday.
it?
We were gonna go on Sunday, but it was closed because
Of course,
everything's
it was
closed
closed.
on Sunday. So that was a bummer, but we tried our best.
I need to see this in action, and I have one other option for boots on the ground for this one because my best friend's a flight attendant, so she's gone to Utah a few times. She like went to a game there and everything. So I'm gonna be like, all right, listen, next time you're there, just like boots on the ground, sip of water because I know she's not gonna get one of those gross sodas, and just report for us, please.
I could. Steven's going for the Kraken game next week, and I could ask him, but he would just roll his eyes at me and say, "Absolutely not." So, if we haven't alienated all of our Clubbers fans, if you would like to tell us a boots on the ground story, send us a voice memo, send us a tweet, send us a DM. If you want to email it, it's too many men at gmail.com. We want to hear about the soda bars.
Tweet us
Anyone,
videos. That would be perfect. Tweet
a
us some
video would be
boots on the ground
amazing,
videos like we were getting for the postseason. And like we hope
incredible.
to get this postseason again.
Yes, that
Oh
is
yeah.
true. Also, I beg of you, bring the energy that must come from drinking all those sodas to your graphics. Like we can take it to another level here, friends,
Yeah.
on social. I think
Yeah.
we have room to grow. Room to grow. I'll leave it with that.
Oh
All
wait,
right.
can we
Yeah.
while we're on this, there's
Yes,
one more thing.
I'm ready.
the investment in you that um Ryan Smith
Oh,
is
yes. This is
for
Shayna, you have effectively nullified our how does this affect the Leafs segment? This is
I
a
kind of
first.
love that.
Utah has taken, okay, go ahead. Yes, Ryan Smith and the investment in local rinks. Please tell us.
Yeah, they're doing what is it, 10 rinks up to $500,000
Correct.
per rink to upgrade them, to have all different facilities around the state that you can play. And I did see some comments saying some should be roller rinks as well. I think that's a great idea. That is how you grow the game. That he was
He's
put in a
great.
very tough situation. I think it's very easy to dunk on the arena and how it's not perfect. They didn't want it this way. Remember
Right,
that. Oh, they
right.
don't have a name or they didn't want it this way, but they are doing their best in all different
100%.
ways. You could see it, the concession prices and
100%.
keeping the games interesting and their willingness to
Broadcast
spend on
deal,
players.
making games accessible.
Yeah,
100%.
they're doing what they and they're investing in the team. Now they're saying we're going to invest in the area and make this a hockey city and a hockey state. I think it's fucking wonderful, and I think it needs to be talked about way more. Like I saw that tweet, and you see a couple people like, "Oh, that's great." Like talk about this more because everyone talks about growing the game. Here's a prime example of how to do it. Just have more rinks, and if they go with roller rinks, that's going to be even better because it's cheaper to play.
Yeah, I saw a bunch of hockey stuff all over Utah, so good for them.
Yeah, listen, I think they are doing a fantastic job. I'm with you, Shane. And it sounds like we will make Stephen report back on this, but it does sound like the enthusiasm and the connection and the growing with the fan base is quite impressive as a result. And good for them. Because to your point, this is exactly what you want to see when it comes to expanding to new markets. Sorry, Toronto, we're over it. Here we go. All right, let's move on to some hockey talk in this episode. Guys, up is down, left is right. The St. Louis Blues are doing it again. A team that we thought was out of it, that the GM comes out and basically says, I'm trading everyone, makes a coaching change to boot, has now won 10 games in a row and isn't just in the playoff hunt. They have taken over the first wild card spot. Excuse me, now they're back in the second wild card spot. They are tied with Minnesota, the Broken Wild, the Meek, the Minnesota Meek, not the Minnesota Wild right now. Sorry, until they get their talent back. But here we are. The Blues seem to be unstoppable. I could argue this two ways. You certainly never want to limp into the playoffs, but you also don't want to use up all your good mojo before the playoffs even start. They're most certainly assured a spot past game 82. Sarah, what do you like and what are you concerned about with the St. Louis Blues? Are they for real?
Well, I love how the offer sheets are working out, right? You got two guys that came in from a tactical move, and now you get all the GM saying it's going to be the summer of offer sheets because look how good it's working out, especially after the injury to Dear Colton, who they kind of the resiliency of them. I love that. I love that Kairu's beginning of the season wasn't a fluke. He's great now. Robert Thomas is back and doing what he has to do. Jim Montgomery, when you look at that. What worries me about them is like Jordan Binnington, but I mean, he's been so good after the Four Nations. I just don't want to see him prosper.
Yeah, there is that. Shayna, pro Blues, anti Blues.
No, I'm pro Blues. Like I watch a good amount. Okay, if I watch games with my mom, she makes me put the Blues on one of my screens because she loves them because they have Pavel Buchnevich. So I have been subjected to a lot of Blues hockey over the last few years. And usually it's somewhat begrudgingly. And this year it was begrudgingly until it wasn't because like they're so interesting and they're so fun to watch. Um, and I like how you can just see like the progression throughout the season. You really can. Like, sure, when they fired Bannister, Thomas wasn't healthy. So you're missing your best player, and that's going to hurt you. And then you have to work in new players. But I just think that the coaching change happened at the right time. And then they got better that when Thomas was ready to return, so much was already in place of like, this is how we're going to be good and we're not going to over rely on this one player. And I think that's great and wonderful for them. And I think Holloway has been a perfect fit for them. Parayko looks like a true number one defenseman. Cam Fowler, I did not think was going to be as good in St. Louis. It's kind of similar like the Hampus Lindholm of it all when it was with Boston. Like, could he recover outside of that environment in Anaheim? And he did, and he could still play matchup minutes. And Fowler's a little bit older, and that decline it's a different style of play, but he's the puck mover Parayko needs. The fact that they are playing this well is so impressive because yes, they're benefiting from a lot of good luck. They're shooting at a high percent. their goaltending's been really good, but you also have to make your own luck, right? You can be lucky to be good, but it's also good to be lucky. And I think that they're good
Oh,
to be lucky.
Oh,
hey.
Thank you. I just like I think that even when you look at it and go, okay, well, if their luck runs out, and it could, there's a lot of sustainability below the surface that I go, they're really good at 5-on-5. And like their rush defense is incredible. They really slowed down the Avs last Saturday, and then they played them again, I think, this Saturday. So I'm really excited to see how like both teams respond to it. Like I I could see them actually being a spoiler depending on who their round one opponent is. Like I think if they run into the Avs or the Stars, I don't think they would, but like I would be very curious how they look in a series against Vegas or even Winnipeg if because we don't know where they're gonna like slot in the end. Like there's something clicking about this team, and then they're gonna get Pariko back.
Did you see that they have a Joe Boo in the locker room?
A
Did you
what?
hear? Do you know what Joe Boo is from Major League, the movie?
I do not know.
Have you seen the movie Major League, Shayna?
I want to say yes.
With Charlie Sheen about the Cleveland Indians?
Yes. Yes.
Sarah, have you seen this movie?
no.
Oh God. Okay. Anyway, it's, we'll discuss that later. Go look up Jordan Binnington's. Jobu is a little like voodoo, like god
Oh,
idol
okay.
type situation
Oh,
that
okay.
you
Okay.
like is supposed to bring you luck. And so
Okay.
Jordan
Well,
Binnington revealed that,
Okay.
yeah, this would be a lot funnier if anyone
Yeah, it would,
got my
it's
but
working
reference.
though. How about
also
that?
with the coaching, I wrote about the Blues in the March column, and some of the comments were like, "Oh, look, Montgomery's good," and I saw some being like, "You're lucky, take him," like whatever, like we didn't want him for Boston. I think that there's a difference between being a good coach and being the right fit. I think we need to talk
100%.
about coaches more. Yeah, like are they a match? He wasn't a match for the Bruins. He needed to leave Boston. I don't think he did a good job there the last couple of years, right? Like I have said it many times. I wasn't a fan of Montgomery in Boston, and the roster was part of it. But like he seems like a legitimately good fit for the Blues that what he wants to do makes more sense with their roster. Like there's a big difference there. And it's not taking a slight at him at all. It's just saying like he happens to be a better fit for them and look at the results.
It ain't blue in St. Louis, that's faux sure. Shout out to my colleague Austin, who heralds from there. So we will see what they do. But let's talk about some other teams that are not yet in the playoff spot that might be in a less secure position than St. Louis. And that means we swing over to the East and we look at the second wild card spot. Now, Brady Tkachuk is currently out for the Senators, so there have been some question marks about them. They are the team that currently holds the first wild card spot with 84 points. But right now, behind them, officially in the second wild card spot, are the Montreal Canadiens with 79 points. Behind them, with the same number of points but a lower points percentage, are the New York Rangers. And then right behind them are the team that everyone who has a soul wants to make it into the playoffs, the Columbus Blue Jackets, with 77 points. Again, the Habs are in there now. Let me make sure I outline for y'all that the Canadiens have 8 games left, the Rangers have 7, and the Blue Jackets have 9. But it is still the Montreal Canadiens that are most heavily favored to hold on to that spot and be the final team in the East. Putting best story ever if Columbus can make it aside, if you look at the Canadiens, the Rangers, and the Blue Jackets, we've talked about this a lot, but it continues to be a topic. Right now, Sarah, which of those three do you believe, from a pure hockey perspective, is going to be sitting in the postseason dance after game 82?
I'm still going Blue Jackets. I mean, Merzlikins is back. There's people coming back. You know what I mean? We got Boone Jenner was making an impact. You got Monahan coming back, and I think they've been scoring again. That's the biggest concern, right? When the scoring dries up, because that's been the impetus behind their season. So they're putting up 7, they're putting up 8, and I think they just need that vibe back. I mean, I'm really enjoying watching Montreal play too, and Lane Hutson's Calder running away with it. But I feel like the Blue Jackets are like a slightly better team.
Shayna, the one thing that people will say about Columbus is that if they make it, they will have certainly earned it, because the balance of their schedule includes a game against Colorado, a game against Toronto, 2 against Ottawa, and
Oh,
2 against the Capitals. What's your pick for the team that's holding that final wild card spot when everything's over?
I'm gonna give it to Montreal right now. And like I might be biased because I've been like so wrapped up in this. I feel like I've been watching them closely so I could write on them, and it's something I've been like on and off about for like the last 2 or 3 weeks. So I've been like really like in the weeds enjoying this. Um, but I don't know, like the Blue Jackets special teams are such a backbreaker, and it's on both ends of the ice. And I just look at it and go, okay, like if your 5-on-5 scoring is going to dry up, which we kind of expected it might, because they were overperforming expectations a lot of the year, the special teams aspect of it, like you need something to give you like a little bit of juice somewhere. And I feel like it's just crushing them. And you look at the games that they were losing, and it's like they're 0 for 3 on the power play, and then they're losing by a goal. You're like, well, if you scored on one of those power plays, I think against the Rangers when they lost one of those games, it was like they were 0 for 3 against the power play and allowed a shorthanded goal back. They lost 4-0. And it's like that's 4 goals right there. Like you could have changed the entire tone of the game, let alone just converting on the opportunities you had. Like you're not losing momentum there. So I feel like there's so many issues kind of like compiling for them plus the schedule of it all. So I feel like they're the team. I just don't see it. I'd love to. I'd be happy to. But I feel like with Montreal, it feels different. There's a resilience to them. And the fact that it's the young guns doing it is what makes this like all important. Like Nick Suzuki and Lane Hudson have been incredible. And Sam Montembeault, it looks really good right now that I have more confidence in them moving forward, especially with the schedule in mind. And I think as the pressure rises and these start feeling more like playoff games, you're seeing guys like Gallagher and Anderson step up and be the secondary scorers they need. Like, do they need that playoff environment for them to like pick up the pace? I don't know.
Yeah, I Montreal could very well hold the spot, but I kind of feel like, and yes, I'm holding a little bit of bias because I think it would just be the greatest story ever. But I think of the three teams, Columbus, as much as their special teams, and they flip-flop, right? Like in the beginning of the season, the penalty kill wasn't good and the power play was, but I feel like the Jackets actually are more primed and ready to try and make a go. Like Montreal, like next year is going to be
Yeah.
like ready, but maybe not just yet. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. All right, our final bit of hockey talk. We have had a bunch of teams start to clinch their playoff spots. We're going to wrap up this hockey talk with me asking each of you which of the teams that have locked up a spot are not getting enough hype. Sarah, here's the teams that have clinched so far as we record: Vegas, Dallas, the Washington Capitals, the Winnipeg Jets, and the Carolina Hurricanes. Which team is not getting enough hype for making it back to the postseason one more time?
I mean, every time I look around, it's like the Vegas Golden Knights have won 6 in a row again. I think they're going to give, if it ends up being the Stars and it might be the Stars and the Avs, but if it ends up being the Golden Knights and the Stars, I think the Golden Knights might win. I feel like every matchup out west is a nightmare, and a huge part of that is like, and it's like all those teams, and then there's the Golden Knights. So if that makes sense at all, I feel like they are not done yet.
It's definitely easy to just not think about Vegas. I don't know why that
Yeah.
is. They're just kind of always there and they're just kind of always finding ways to win and you forget about it till it's happened. Shayna, for you, which locked and loaded playoff team is not getting enough hype?
Um, I'm like a little bit torn on this answer because
Mhm.
I look to the top of each conference. And I'm like, okay, I think you can make the argument either way there. But now that Dallas is creeping up on Winnipeg, I'm like, okay, maybe we have reason. I'm going to go with Washington
Okay.
because the focus, I think, for a lot of people in the beginning of the year was like, this team's a fluke. It's not real,
Right.
right? And I think you forget about how much they pulled it together down the stretch last year without a lot of help. And then how much help they brought in the offseason and how good the coaching has been and how good guys like McMichael and Protas, like they're really good there. And you're seeing the reclamation projects pay off. Like Dubois for Kemper was literally the perfect trade for both sides. Who knew, right? Well, the GMs knew, and they did something right there.
Wow.
It's not just, oh, it's Alex Ovechkin and the rest of the guys. Like it is an up and coming group tied with this veteran core. Like John Carlson looks great. It's not getting the hype that it deserves at all. Rasmus Sandin has grown a lot there. Like you can go through that roster and just be like, wow, this is a really deep team and they are really, really good. Do I think they're gonna get past the Atlantic Division if they make it to round three? Like honestly, no, because I think the Atlantic is that good. If it's Florida or Tampa, I would still side with them over Washington, right? But I could easily see this team going on a round make it 2 rounds easily and look good doing it. Like I'm very curious how a series against the Canes would go for them.
Yep.
Well, those are our picks. We'll start talking more and more about teams that are in it. The only team we'll talk about that's out of it is, of course, the Vancouver Canucks. We love you so much. Just kidding. I'm only going to milk it a little bit longer.
No,
I
no, milk it,
promise.
milk it.
A
This is
little
good.
bit longer.
That
They
is
deserve
good.
it.
Yeah, because people were so upset last year if it got talked about like, oh, you're lucky. And it's like, no, no, no. It's more than just luck, but here are red flags. And they are there, and there's a reason we talk about them.
Yes, that is indeed. And I got something right, so I'm going to take the W for once. All right. We wrap up this episode with everyone's favorite game. And since we've been talking about all the jockeying in both sides of the NHL for this round of FMK, and Sarah, as is tradition, you are up first. We are going to fuck, marry, kill the potential Atlantic Division round 1 matchups. There's still hockey to be played. There's still teams that could move around. So in terms of what you would like to see in the Atlantic for round 1, here are your choices to FMK. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Florida, Tampa Bay, Ottawa, Toronto, or Florida, Ottawa? Go.
I'm killing Florida, Ottawa. I've had enough of the Kachuk brothers, like hot take. I'm sorry, like we get it. They're funny. I am going to fuck the Battle of Florida because I I think it would be great, but I also think that I have to marry the Battle of Ontario because how funny would it be if Olmark still knocks the Leafs out in the first round?
Of all the reasons, I would agree with you on that. That was not the one I thought of, and it's so, so good. Shayna, what are your picks?
Okay. I'm gonna kill the Battle of Florida. I've been stomping my feet all year that I don't like the playoff system because they're the two best in the East, and I don't think they should play in round 1. If they do, am I gonna enjoy the hell out of it and watch every single second? Of fucking course I am. But if I can get that in round 2, I will be a happy camper. Um, I will fuck Florida, Ottawa. The Kachuk brothers of it all would be funny, but for me, I want to see like Brad Marchand and Sam Bennett against Brady Kachuk. Like Matthew,
All
he's
right,
there, and that's fine. But something like you want to, like if you want to play this right for the NHL, right, and build off the marketing of Four Nations of the game cells itself, which you should be doing here, you replay Bennett versus Kachuk, getting into it the entire time and go, okay, that is to me like the link you didn't think you saw coming. I think that could be a good series. Like to me, the Senators like rivalry series games, them against Boston and them against Florida have been very, very, very good this year, and them against Montreal too. That I'm like, all right, I'll take a series of that. I'll be happy. And then you get Toronto, Tampa Bay as a result, and that's not a bad first round. I will marry Ottawa, Toronto because first of all, if the Leafs lose that series, oh my God, would that be good? That like I'm not rooting against the Leafs. I'm rooting for the Senators, but the content, the drama, the everything, it would be so damn funny. Like it would just be hysterical. It's that trap series, it's that regional matchup that you can get up for. And it does feel like more equal, right? Because here you have they would be the best in the Atlantic against the wild card. Like it feels right that I would not be upset about that.
All right. I agree with Shayna for slightly different reasons. I do agree on the kill. I want Florida Tampa. With my entire being, Florida Tampa Bay should not be a round 1 matchup. Period. End of story. And I will fight you if you disagree. I'm marrying Toronto, Ottawa because what that means is that of the Canadian teams that are finally getting into the playoffs, they're going to be one less at the end of the round, no matter what. And I live for that drama and reaction. And of course, Toronto, the Allmark pick, Sarah, that's like literally the best thing I've ever heard. That's fantastic.
I'm glad.
It's so good. And therefore, partially by process of elimination and partially because the Kachuk versus Kachuk of it all seems to fit the narrative of what I'd pick to fuck around with because it's just chaos and you don't really want to be in it all the time. Florida, Ottawa, falls in there for me. All right, my friends, that will do it for us. We so appreciate y'all hanging out with us, tweeting at us, sending us the memes, sending us the calls across the games in all of the hockey leagues when they happen. You can connect with us on social, YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram. It's 2_much_man. On BlueSky, it's 2_much_man. We do have merch. We're encouraging you to wait a little bit though, because I still haven't gotten the stuff I ordered on January 13th, and I keep emailing them every 2 weeks. So we're trying to find a better solution for y'all. Stick with us through that. We love, love, love y'all. Until we talk again, please do something, no matter how big or small, to make sure that hockey truly is for everyone. We will talk to you soon. Send us your soda shop visit takes.
Love ya.
Bye.